My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast, and it's Bread Week.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeast your eyes on this.
Oh,
Didn't we just?
we didn't need that. We're delivering these jokes almost as well as they were delivered in the Cabana.
Oh, yes, because you will loaf them as much as we do.
Oh, look, we're all for puns. We are all about the puns. If you've listened to us long enough, first of all, sorry. And second of all...
Don't sue us.
Third of all, we're all about puns. Like, this is the house of puns. But...
I don't know what's
they were terrible.
on.
They were terrible. I don't like starting negative, but they started negative. They started it.
They started it. Which wasn't our fault, miss. They started it. Started with the terrible puns. And I've just been trying to, we were in discussion during the ad breaks, and you're like, it's the hosts. The hosts could rescue this. And they're kind of just chucking gasoline onto the fire.
Yeah, it's kind of, and again, people are going to go, oh, but I like, Madeline Samuel, I like, and again, yeah, great.
Personally, great people.
Fantastic. But
it's just not working.
It's not working on a host front.
No.
And that's hanging the bakers out to dry. The other thing that's hanging the bakers out to dry, and I feel so bad for them, is the two challenges they picked tonight.
Oh, my God.
Are literally two of the least entertaining things to do on a baking show.
Let's plait some bread.
And let's make some scones. And it wasn't even a technical on making scones. Where they did it on Australian last time, it was the pumpkin ones. And it was technical. And so you had to know...
juice.
It was all about your techniques.
Juice makes everything.
It was all about your techniques. And this time, it was a signature, which was in the wrong order, but we'll come back to that in a minute. And it was a signature. And so they had pre-warning and could go off and plan. It was boring. And half of them made pinwheels.
Yeah. And
so...
got into fisticuffs about whose mum made better scones.
Oh, God. It was if MasterChef Australia is a nonna off... and it is.
It is.
Then we can probably say the Great Kiwi Bake Off is a mum off. It was Mummageddon.
It is Mummageddon.
It was Mummageddon tonight.
It's Mumma Fight Club.
My mum makes these scones. Well, my mum makes these scones. Well, I've got a picture of my mum on the recipe, so that means she makes even better scones than yours.
Why don't you come outside and meet my mum?
My mum is actually me. I've got a mask on and I'm actually my own mum and I'm making the scones because my son Joel, is not very good. Anyway.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
Let's do this.
All right. So the first one was the technical because of course it is.
Yes. And shalom.
I know.
Welcome.
So it was braided.
It was a braided Jewish bread. What's it called? Hafla?
Let's go with it.
Oh my God. I'm very sorry to my Jewish friends. My brain is not working.
That's
I'm
okay.
on medication and it's making my brain turn to mush.
I do want to point out at the moment that it's not something that most people bake. It's like really not. It's a very specialist bread.
Yeah.
It's a very close...
Looks delicious though.
It's a very close baked bread.
Actually, my Jewish friends... Why have you not brought me this bread?
Yes, my friends.
My friends! Where have you been?
You do not bring me bread?
You do not invite me to your Shabbat?
Look, we're here. Your old non-Jewish friends.
We're gentiles.
Your genteel friends.
We're more like ungenteel.
Why don't you call?
Probably because we're ungenteel.
Why don't you write? Why don't you call?
Because we can't pronounce their food properly.
Why don't you visit? Why don't you make us food? Surely you've got 5 minutes in your day to ring us. Is that enough Jewish sort of guilt?
Yeah, and we're very sorry about the persecution of your people throughout the years. There we go. Okay, moving on.
Don't bring it down. I'm guilting them into bringing us bread.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
No.
I thought we were expressing our white guilt as well.
No, not our guilt. We're talking about their just general inbuilt guilt.
Okay.
The one that means you get food.
But I'm like coated in white guilt.
Well, I know you are, but far more importantly, I'd rather be coated in things like Knish. So anyway, let's get into the most important part of the technical braided challenge, which was Edmund's flour. It was everywhere. It was really everywhere. There was no doll. But by God, there was Edmund's flour.
Challah. Thank you, Google.
Well done.
Challah.
So I believe when they first said it, I wrote it as Halah, as in Halah. And the reason I wrote it like that and not with the CH is because...
You ain't no Challah-Back Girl. You ain't no Challah-Back Girl.
We now have...
2 times went around that block and we made some Jewish breads, y'all. Ain't no Challah-Back Girl.
We now have an episode title, Challah-Back Girl. Anyway, so the reason why I write it out that way is phonetically so I can say the damn thing.
Well, it didn't help me. You left me to pronounce it incorrectly.
But in effect, come up with the episode title. So, now they asked Dean why he picked this. It's a really good question. We'd all like to know.
Because he's baked all around the world, including Jerusalem.
He has baked all around the world, apparently.
He'd been baked in Jerusalem. I hear they have mighty fine hashish.
It wasn't so much the Wailing Wall as the Giggling Wall. Anyway, he said he was interested in 2 things. Dough development.
Yes.
Sure. And a focus on instructions on the plat. What he wasn't expecting was that no one could follow the basic instructions as to how to bake the bread. And that became a problem for everybody except the youngest member inside the Cabana.
Yes, who went, all right, I see you, I plat you.
And we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yes.
So, Clayton was the only person who said that he'd actually ever made this before, though.
Ah.
Well, didn't really show with his plating skills.
No. He made it. He didn't say if he made it well.
He didn't say he'd platted it. He just said he'd made it.
Maybe he just made the dough and called it his lovely Jewish, maybe his elderly Jewish neighbour to come in and plat
it. Come over and plat some bread with me.
His bobby came in and went, hello, Clayton. I am here to plat your challah. Just move over and let me do this part because you're going to sugar it up.
I wasn't aware that Esther was appearing.
Neither was I, but here we are.
Kristie does have a middle-aged Jewish character called Esther.
I know.
Who
I'm
appears.
very sorry.
No, don't be. Esther's wonderful. Michigana. Then we also found out that there were people inside the pavilion that had never made bread.
Because, when you're going on Bake Off, there are things that you don't need to worry about.
If there's one thing...
You'll never bake a bread.
Like Stacey, if there's...
Cakes. Fuck making those and practicing those.
Stacey, if there's one thing...
Fast and loose in the Cabana.
If there's one thing I can say to you, Stacey, it's that maybe there's a bread week. Because there's always a fucking bread week.
But, fly by the seat of your plants. Live dangerously. It's fast and loose in the Cabana. Just go in there, bake whatever the fuck you want.
You know what they didn't actually bake this week in bread week?
What?
A loaf of bread.
Well, they did. They baked a challah, which is a bread, and it's a loaf.
Yeah, but it's more about... It was actually more about the condiments. You see, they had to make a lemon curd and their own butter.
Yes.
How good's butter?
Butter's so good. But you got to salt it. You got to assault your butter, but not too much.
Hashtag you ought to be congratulated. Yes. See, this is where I do prefer the fact that the one sponsor that Australian Bake Off has is a butter company. Because, they didn't have to make that crap. And it didn't have to, waste time
but
making butter.
But it's hilarious watching people shake jars. And Hannah did a great job.
I know they were looking...
It's good that she engages in child slave labour. But, a teacher's got to eat.
I love the fact that she's like, when I'm doing my classes, we pass it around. It becomes quite entertaining and quite fun. And I'm like, that's your idea of fun? Let's shake the jar, kids.
Yeah.
Miss requires some butter for dinner tonight.
Oh.
Can you all just shake the jar?
Hold on. Your school has a racket. They have hospitality people, and apparently they've got to practice their barista skills. So they have a coffee, cafe morning where the teachers get coffee.
One, we buy those coffees.
What?
Yeah. Who's running the racket now?
Okay.
Two, and far more importantly, do you want me without caffeine?
I don't think you could survive. You just kind of shrivel into a husk. You go into torpor, and I have to go and get a fuck ton of coffee just to pour on you.
Exactly. So who's running?
You're like a coffee vampire. You don't have blood. You have coffee.
Pure caffeine.
It's you can't donate blood because you go there, and then all the people who are there donating blood are getting cups of your blood.
They're all asking me. Am I single origin? Anyway, so
You're a dark roast.
So what we did learn, however, before we got anywhere near anyone baking anything, because let's face it, it wasn't about anyone baking fucking anything tonight.
No.
It's so nice to see the microwave is still working.
It is. Larissa did a bang-up job. It's looking as good as new, better even. Looks like she brought it into the modern era.
Not that modern. It didn't look like it was that modern, but it was more modern than, the National that they had last week. But more importantly than all of those things, there was still a little bit of an element left over of last week of the sourness of the battle. People were hip-checking each other out of the way of the microwave at one point.
It's like, my turn. No, it's
Now,
my
you know
turn.
how I would have made the butter?
How?
I would have melted some butter and then refrozen it. I would have just put it back in the fridge.
It says make butter, not reconstitute.
No. I would have made it. I would have taken it. I would have melted it. I would have stirred it around a bit, and then I would have put it back in and I would have maybe shaped it like a love heart or a doll symbol might have been good, like a doll pineapple symbol could have been good.
You're essentially doing a Seymour Skinner, like reserving up butter and claiming it as your own.
Yes, exactly.
I know. I said steamed hams.
It's more of an Albany expression. Anyway, now Vanessa had never made this. Nobody really had, apart from Clayton.
No.
And then Larissa realised...
No one had made what she made because she left the eggs out of it.
No, well, that was Larissa. Larissa forgot the eggs.
No, Vanessa forgot the eggs.
No, later on, Vanessa forgot a couple of other bits in the scones. But, no, she forgot a few other bits in this too, but Larissa also forgot the eggs and then went, I've forgotten the eggs. I wondered why it was really dry and there was nothing to it.
Oh, okay.
Because she was mixing dry ingredients.
Oh, just everyone's forgetting their eggs. But Vanessa was laughing about how she'd not made the recipe.
Yeah, but Vanessa later on did forget half the things, and Dean's like, you can't taste this, you can't taste... Well, there's clearly this, there's clearly that, and she's going, no, there's not.
No, there's not. There's none of that.
Joel. We have a theory, but you have a theory about
I have a theory about Joel. Okay. Here's my...
Now, Nicole on Twitter had a theory that...
Okay, you tell Nicole's theory.
Nicole had a theory that he was a PA and was an assistant on the show, and he was supposed to go home week one, much like our idea of somebody from the crew fills in and goes home week one. But he accidentally baked too well, and then he's stuck, and they can't get him out of the show. You, however... I
have a completely different... Still a similar thing that he's stuck there. Completely different reason. Okay. Joel is beholden to someone. He wants to go on a rugby trip, but his, what's it called? His estate is entailed. Or what's it called? When people who have, like, an inheritance, but it's locked up.
Yes.
And he has, like, an executors.
Yep.
And his mum's his executor. And what they won't tell us on the show... But what explains away the fucking weird dynamic between these two is that Sue is his mum.
Yeah, we got it wrong. She's not enamoured with him in a romantic/sexual manner.
No.
It's the mother, and she's protective. This is getting very psycho all of a sudden.
So Joel is doing everything he can to flunk out of the fucking, show.
I want to just travel and play rugby, Mum.
Yeah. And she's like... If you want your money, what you need to do is come on my show. We're short one baker. And you can get in there and just do some baking. But, Mum, I'm a rugby player. Yes, but I've taught you everything you know, Joel. So you're coming on the show. Okay. I'll just be out after one episode. No, it's got to be at least 2 episodes. And
she originally said yes. And then what she didn't tell him was there's an agreement in place. And he's trying to get out and he can't.
Yeah, because she's, ducking around, combat crawling past and just fixing up his bakes. Not too well, but just well enough.
Just enough, because nobody seemed more shocked that his bakes were good than him.
Yeah.
So, because when we first saw Joel...
He's not Tinny Clayton, he's just related to Sue.
He's related to a judge who's doing it for him.
Yeah.
But, what I loved was when they cut to Joel the first time, our first image of Joel was him explaining what could go wrong. And he literally said, what could go wrong is, and then he looked at his bowl and went, what I just did.
I'll give you an example. Here's one I prepared earlier.
Here's an example. Again, he's trying to flunk out and they won't let him.
He was trying to flunk out and he thought he'd almost got away with it. But then Sue's like, camera 3, get on to Joel right now and ask him, producer, ask him what could go wrong. And he's like, shit. shit. What could go wrong is exactly what I've done here. Fuck you, mother.
You're out when I say you're out, young Joel.
Don't you worry, Liechtenstein. I'll be there to play rugby in you soon.
Liechtenstein.
They have a massive rugby culture.
Apparently. So
Bigger than the country.
last week. Sonali. Now, Sonali decided that this week she was going to move at the speed of continental drift. It worked.
Great editing. This is the best editing I've seen in the show because I was like, oh, Sonali's fucked, isn't she?
Well, I mean, the thing was that when you looked at Sonali early on,
She was watching that milk meniscus. I've never seen someone stare so intently at a meniscus than a year 8 science student.
What I was worried about, I was really worried about the fact that this is a show, and I think the Sonali bit sort of demonstrated this. It's a show where nothing happens. But it takes...
It's not Seinfeld.
But it takes forever to not happen. And yet, it feels like there's a million things going on. But when you go back over it, and I've been looking at the notes and looking back over the episode, nothing happened at all in any challenge, but they filled up the time with nothing.
Do you think we can get Larry David in just to do some writing?
How can my question is, how can nothing happen and it still feels rushed?
Yeah.
And they've only got 2 challenges too, so it's not a timing issue. Like, they shouldn't have a problem.
It's just all over the plot. Fast and loose in the Cabana, folks.
Except for Sonali, who was very slow and methodical. Now
she's like, I'm going to pretend it's Great British Bake Off.
Now we need to talk about Annabelle. So
yes. Probably Great German Bake Off.
Annabelle is the one person.
Precision.
Annabelle is the one person.
Intense focus.
Annabelle is the one person in there who actually knows what she's doing.
Yeah. She really is.
And Jeff knows. Jeff knows, but Jeff is at a point, I think, in there where last week he gave a lot of help to people, and it was almost like this week Jeff just sat back and went, "No, I did it last week.
I'm out.
Fuck off. I'm doing my own thing over here.
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to win it, but Annabelle."
Mind you, it's platting, and I don't think Jeff has a lot of...
But before that,
yeah,
Annabelle was explaining a technique thing, and she was explaining the stretching.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the stretching. And she goes, you've got to stretch your dough because, you've got to be able to look at it. It's got to be...
like a window pane.
You've got to be able to see through it, but it shouldn't have a gap in it, and blah, 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 blah.
It shouldn't break.
And then they cut back to Joel, who admitted that he had absolutely no idea what Annabelle was just saying.
Well, at first he thought they said it was a beep test, and he got ready to, start doing the jumps.
Running.
Yeah, and doing the runs.
5, 2.
He goes, he's like, can we do a beep test though? I got to keep my cardio up for the tour.
And Sue's in the background. You'll do what I tell you to do.
He's like, just 6 more years and that inheritance is mine.
It's good. That money's got to be worth it.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be worth it. There's only one way to justify it.
Yeah.
So then we had the montage of the butter shaking. Now, what was interesting about this was they gave them every instruction for the bake and no instructions for the curd and butter. Yeah. What are they testing?
They're testing baking?
Because, again, I refer back to Dean, who's baked everywhere,
He's baked everywhere.
And the 2 things they said with Dean was that Dean was looking for dough development and following the instructions on the plate.
Yeah.
And then gave them absolutely nothing on the butter and the curd, and the thing they seemed to judge everybody very harshly on
was the butter and the
curd.
Was
the butter.
Oh, it's salty, too salty. It's like being
this bit of salt's got all of the salt for the Cabana.
It was like the bears had come home.
It was
testing their porridge.
Testing their butter. Goldilocks.
Sorry, I was watching the porn version. RH and fairy tales.
Brothers. No. Hi, Mum. Anyway,
this is beginning. I really don't watch the porn version of fairy tales.
It's a joke.
But now I've said it, I might go look it up.
No,
it's sheer hilarious.
Anyway, so it was like Goldilocks came in. Oh, God.
Oh, my God. Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Ho White and the 7 Dwarfs. That's going to be a great one.
I'll just steer into the skid here. Steer! And...
Cinderfella. Right. It's a trans one.
Well done. Anyway, it was At this point, I got my favourite conversation of the night.
Yeah.
Clayton is over, standing next to Joel, and he looks at him and he goes, "You ever made butter before?" And Joel goes, "No." And Clayton just looks at him and goes, "I figured."
And then went on to proceed to say, "I don't think it'll matter. You just throw whatever in a jar and shake it, and it'll
work.
It'll work."
It did.
Lo and behold.
And then it became braid time. Now, this is where it got really interesting, and a few people, Nicole on Twitter especially, pointed out, was this conferring? Clayton, Joel, and Jeff all went over to Annabelle's bench, and Annabelle gave them all a tutorial on plaiting the bread, which is one of the elements that Dean had said they needed to follow the instructions and they needed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's the technical. It's the one thing you're not supposed to get help with.
Exactly. It's you're supposed to be fairly independent with the technical. Yeah, I think she's right.
I have a bit of a problem with it because, again, it's not like there were three challenges. Well, there were three challenges. We'll get to the third one later. But they were only using two.
But I am still down for fast and loose in the cabana.
That seems to be the way they're going with it.
Yeah, that's where I think it's going on.
So, at this point, they all baked. The host made very bad bread jokes.
Yep.
And then we were done. Literally, that was my note. They all bake. The host make more bad bread jokes. And then I go into the judging. So, the judging. Jeff, no defined braid and a bit too dense. I assume that was about the bread. Annabelle, egg wash was good. The braids were defined. Nice. By the way, I'm not being too succinct on these bits of judging.
This is all there was.
It was literally all there was. Vanessa's were dense. They said, it's got egg, it's got butter, and Vanessa's shaking her head and going, no, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Surprisingly, apparently without egg and butter, she didn't come last.
What was it like?
She left out two key ingredients of baking. Joel, they went, this is a nice loaf, and nobody looked more confused than Joel.
Yeah, because his mum swapped it out. She couldn't put it in as the best, but she certainly made sure it wasn't bad.
Flax and Global, or whatever they're called. As Josh on Twitter tonight said, which was one of my things that I was enjoying on Twitter tonight, and Twitter was pretty good tonight. Josh at one point tweeted out, what half of Fleischl Schleifen or whatever that horrible nickname was is Dean. And
the snuffly half.
He was the snuffly half. Sonali, speaking of that, Sonali, they said it had good colour, it looks and tastes good. And then he said, I could sniff this all day.
Well, he's been baked all around the world. I'm surprised if he's into lining up crumbs.
That's where he gets it from. Hannah, they said, had a loose weave. And it was a bit dry. Fast and loose in the cabana. Clayton's, they said, looked attractive. The braid wasn't good, though. So, in other words, it didn't look attractive.
Yeah, one was good. One had a bit of a misstep.
And they said that the butter was light but needed more salt. Then they said that Larissa's had an eggy bottom. And they went, look at the bottom. It's all egg.
Egg.
It just looked burnt.
It was like Fraser Enning.
They said it was too dense, much like Fraser Enning.
Yep.
And needed more salt.
It was the Fraser Enning.
No, Fraser Enning didn't need more salt. He has too much of it already.
He's a salty fellow.
Stacey, however, they said was overbaked.
Salty, I mean a fascist fucktard.
They said Stacey's was overbaked, like a stale loaf.
Yeah.
And the butter had the salt for the whole table.
Yes.
So it was Hannah, Stacey, Vanessa, Jeff, Larissa, Clayton, Joel, Annabelle, and Sonali. So then we got into, well, you would assume we're going into a showstopper. No, that would make sense and be in the right order. No, we're going to a signature.
Yes.
Because why the fuck not?
Fast and loose.
Fast and loose with the rules.
Just letting it, just like, fuck conferring, fuck actual baking. Next week they're all just going to be skinny dipping in the pool.
Once the mammoths fill it back up.
Yes. With water, not the urine that they initially tried.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yep.
Anyway, 6 sweet or 6 savoury scones. Now, notice how they said the word scones.
Yes.
Is a pinwheel a fucking scone?
Well, there's pinwheel scones, so maybe.
Except they just look like scrolls.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up to that is scones bread. Now, we know
Yes.
the technicality, which is that they're technically a quick bread, but would you consider a scone bread?
Well, yes, they're a quick bread, much like damper and like flatbreads and stuff, I guess. I'm not an expert.
Well, I've asked an expert.
What'd they say?
They were like, technically this is right, but, it's a bit of a long bow to draw.
Oh, who fucking cares?
And the bigger problem with it,
Yeah.
and the legitimately I have a problem with this, we mentioned this before, is that a signature in scones with 6 sweet and 6 savoury means you can make whatever you want with them. It should be absolutely simple.
Yeah.
Right? Normally, if you see scones, it's something like the pumpkin ones we saw in Australian, which were a nightmare because pumpkin scones are a different animal altogether, and you can either make them or you can't.
Yeah.
So technically, they're difficult. Now, not much actually happened in the challenge.
Nah.
So let me just list the bakes.
Great.
Hannah, she had buttermilk ones with buttermilk and white chocolate for her savoury and for her sweet, and her savoury were pepper dew and spinach. Mm-hmm. Clayton's
Hold
was...
on, what's fucking pepper dew? Are we just making words up now? Are we just throwing what the fuck in? Pepper dew sounds like Pikachu's spicier cousin. I choose you, Pepper Dew.
It's basically,
What generation in Pokemon Go do you think Pepper Dew comes in at? Is it a regional only Pokemon?
I'm going with that. I mean, Pepper Dew it's the name of a brand in South Africa, but it's like capsicum. Like stuffed capsicums. Anyway, Clayton, cinnamon, date and walnut for his savoury, for his sweet, and feta, bacon and pumpkin for his savouries.
Oh.
Dean, at this point, tried to play mind games with Clayton.
How so?
Well, he went over and tried to talk to him about, have you baked these before? Do you know what the bake time is? Do you know about the stuffing? Do you know about the filling? It kind of felt like Clayton was fighting an unarmed man.
Yeah.
And Dean very quickly just sort of gave up and walked away.
Yeah,
So Sonali. Cranberry and ginger and white chocolate.
Yum.
And then her savouries were paneer and sun-dried tomato.
Paneer!
Larissa's were apple and allspice. Mm-hmm. And then sun-dried tomato, spinach and feta.
Yum.
Now, interestingly enough, they said the Joel's were too basic, but apple and allspice and sun-dried tomato, spinach and feta sound fairly basic.
Yeah, but as he said, I like a classic.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? Spinach and cheese.
So Jeff made kumara, cheese and bacon.
But I liked how he said that up to Dean. Dean's like, do you think that's a bit simple? He's like, I like classics.
That was
you
good.
Can argue with that?
I don't have a problem with it.
He's like, you know who my mum is. You know why I'm here.
Go talk to her.
Yeah.
You asked me. So Jeff said kumara, cheese and bacon for the savoury, and his sweet one was a very German word.
The pfeffernuss spice.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend. It's just a very long German word. It's Dampfnudel. No, it's not Dampfnudel. Anyway, they probably should have served Dampfnudel in all honesty. I would have taken it. They were their dumplings, but still. Fast and loose here in the cabana.
Oh, look, as I said, like next week, skinny dipping and possibly some table tennis.
First challenge has to be done in between sets.
Yeah.
So...
No. Table tennis is the challenge.
Joel did a cheese and spinach and a date and orange. As we said, quite clearly, Joel gives no shits.
He's like, I'm here.
Like, because said, Dean challenged him on it, and Joel's like, no, this is what I'm making. I like it.
The classics.
I like it. Why would I need to do anything else?
I like it. I'm putting a tin on it.
And they had no answer. Annabelle made mandarin ones for her sweets.
Yeah.
With a mandarin glaze. Mm-hmm. Apparently the problem in the judging was that you couldn't taste any mandarin. I'm like, it's all fucking mandarin.
I think they had...
The only way it could have been more mandarin is if she just put a fucking mandarin on the plate.
I think their spices might have affected their taste buds.
I don't know what affected their taste buds. He baked all over the world, you know. And the sun-dried tomato, feta and thyme. And to give you an idea to pull back the curtain a little bit, I'll give you an idea of how interested I was in that part of it. I wrote thyme, T-I-M-E.
I was watching it going, I'm just sprinkling time over it. I just imagined Jeff was some kind of warlock.
We were all hoping it moved a bit faster. At this point,
Daylight savings, the fucking...
At this point, Donovan's appeared. We've missed that sponsor. It's been a challenge.
Yeah, but they were missing Dole tonight. No one was using fresh pineapple.
No, I mean, at one point they did pick up the bananas and pretend to have a conversation on the banana.
Thank you, hosts. You really helped out there.
What a sketch that was. It's comedy gold. Anyway,
but I don't know what it is. Like, I know other hosts who've done something similar to those kind of things, but it's worked. Why isn't it working? And I just can't quite get my brain around it. So everyone's got a bit more...
Claire and Mel do very similar style jokes and pull them off beautifully. I think, you know what it is?
Yeah?
Claire and Mel commit, and it doesn't feel like they fully commit. It feels like there's a bit of a nod and a wink.
Yeah.
To look at what we're doing. Isn't this funny? Whereas Claire and Mel commit to the idea of this is deadly serious. Like, when you've got Claire twirling with a ribbon, she's committed to that. It's not done with a nod and a wink about how funny it was.
There's just something
when Mel's got the toaster and the toast pops up, she's committing to this.
But the interesting thing, right, in comedy is there's a lot of genuine people who are hilarious and funny because they're actually good at crafting jokes and they're good with their timing, and they don't just go, oh, I'm goofy, obviously I'm funny. And I really feel like there are some comedians who are just like, look at me, I'm just goofy and funny, like the Amy Schumers and stuff of the world. And I don't. They might hit on comedy gold at one point, but a lot of the times they just soar for the stars and miss.
It feels, again, for me it feels like there's a bit of a wink. And you don't do these jokes with a wink. You commit. Like, why does it work with Noel and Sandy and British? Because Noel Fielding and Sandy Togsvig commit to a joke.
And they're totally there for it, though, but there's a lot of heart with the Bakers. Oh. Okay, I think I'm seeing a little bit of the magic that's missing.
Yep.
Is when you see Sandy and Noel and, like, Mel and Claire... You know their heart's in it with the Bakers. Now, I'm not saying that that's not what Maddie and...
It's not coming across.
...and Hayley are doing, but it's not quite coming across. They look like they're just kind of wedging themselves in to be funny.
Whereas with the others, they're there to supplement the Bakers and bring the Bakers up.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they've got the hosts... the hosts haven't worked out where they slot around the Bakers.
Yeah.
And you're not...
Because, like, there was a moment tonight where Larissa was riffing with Hayley, and then Madeline comes over for no particular reason but to slot herself in.
Yeah.
And it's like, you didn't need to be there. Like, a lot of the time in improv, a lot of it is, do you need another person on stage? You better to remove yourself.
Yeah.
Like, and, just...
It's yeah, I think the other thing is, too, it's that interaction with the Bakers, and the point of that interaction is... It's to be funny, but it's to raise the Bakers up, draw attention to those Bakers, bring out their personality a bit. And I also think that the format of the show isn't helping that, because the poor Bakers, and I've said this a number of times, it's so rushed. For a show that has time to take, it is so rushed that you don't really get the Bakers.
Yeah. But I think as well, if we think about Mel and Claire and even Sue and Mel and... Yep. Noel and Sandy and stuff, is that they have cut their teeth in the comedy world. Like, look at Claire Hooper held her fucking, like, self along with Paul McDermott and Mikey Robbins.
Yep.
Which is a fucking big ass. And she was able to do that.
And Mel Buttle, the same sort of thing in terms of her comedy chops are just outstanding. And she's, works very hard on that stand-up scene and interacts with all of those people at the top level.
So perhaps it's just experience and stuff.
Sandy Togsvig, of course, got a lot of
God.
her experience. Whose Line Is It Anyway? The early days, not the crappy Drew Carey version.
No, we're talking about early British.
The real Clive Anderson version.
Yeah.
And Sandy Togsvig was very early in on that and big on that.
Yeah.
And Noel Fielding, enough said. I mean, it's they've all
Who can make a fucking... But he's also brilliant in that. Remember the fucking... Was it the chicken thing that he sang with Paloma Faith on Never Mind the Buzzcocks. Oh, it was just hilarious.
He and Paloma Faith, it was brilliant. Yeah. So, back inside the cabana, you can't tell there's not a lot that happens. But I mean, when we get into the third challenge, when we get into the showstopper, you'll find out why.
Everyone was
happened.
Everyone
was a bit tired. We have to take that into account.
Yeah.
With we'll talk about it in a minute.
Yeah.
So Larissa said something we all know, but no one ever says, which is that rustic is the nice way to say ugly.
I'm a bit rustic.
Yeah, we're all a bit rustic.
Nothing wrong with rustic.
It then looked like Annabelle was actually overworking her scones. She was pounding them and pushing them into a shape. Isn't that right, Leo? Yep, sure is.
Yeah. He's not happy with pounded scones.
Not happy with pounded scones. Vanessa.
Do not overwork your scones.
So Vanessa made cinnamon
rock cakes. I tried to tell that to another support worker when I was much younger, but no, he knew everything. Never made a fucking scone in his life, and I'm like, please do not knead that dough. It's going to go hard as fucking rocks. Lo and behold, when they pulled them out of the oven, the ones I'd made with my people were nice, soft and fluffy, and theirs was rock hard. And I'm like, and he's like, oh, can we have some of your scones? I'm like, nah, it's only enough for us. You did yours, fucker.
As you can see, Kristie helping the masses.
Yeah.
So Vanessa...
Libertarian ideals, people.
So Vanessa made cinnamon and pecan pinwheels. And then bacon and onion with caramelised onion jam.
Sounds delicious.
Stacey went with lemon scones and smoked cheddar. Simple. And then we had the moment of excitement. Vanessa nearly forgot the sugar.
Vanessa. Where's your head at? Oh, I know.
Now, Kristie, look at my notes.
Yeah?
I've literally got here all the bakes that people did.
Yep.
Then Vanessa nearly forgot the sugar.
Excite.
And then the judging.
Oh! Yep, here we go.
Scones are not a bake you spend a mountain of time on. They're a technical that you talk about the technical ability with the bake. They're not this. So Sonali. Now, Dean comes in and says, I can smell white chocolate. Well, we know.
Lo and behold.
Because Captain Snuffles was at it again. And this time though, they added eating noises.
It's that one where like things are just kind of caught in the jaw.
Oh, don't do it.
Fucking drives me mad.
Between that...
My mum does it. Oh, she's so lucky to be alive after all these years.
Between both of them, David Hirschfelder, which is now I'm going to call them, I'm going to use different names. David Hirschfelder. They're not Fleischel, Schleifel, or Bleichel, Bleifel, or Stifel, Schneifel. It's David Hirschfelder now. David Hirschfelder, of course, for those that are playing along at home, John Farnham's keyboard player. Anyway, I can smell white chocolate, so Dean said that while he was snuffling, and then he said that the savoury one was very clever. Sure. He said that Stacey's smoky flavour was nice, and then her lemon one didn't have enough lemon.
Yeah.
They said that Jeff had a pretty crumb. I'm assuming they were talking about the scone.
Jeff,
they said it had nice,
a pretty crumb.
They said Jeff had a nice texture. Again, I'm assuming it was the scone. Not overspiced. And they said the savoury one, however, was unfortunately very underbaked. Annabelle. Her mandarin with mandarin syrup didn't have enough mandarin. Sure.
Okay.
But her savoury one was quite good. Hannah, they said the buttermilk gave a good crumb to the sweet one. She also used buttermilk in the savoury, and they said it was very well balanced. Clayton got it's not as bad as it looks.
That's what she said.
That is what she said. However, his savoury one was quite dense.
That's also what she said.
Vanessa's, the first one apparently needed something extra, but they didn't help her out by saying what. And they said that her onion ones were very well executed. I did come back to this when, they sent her home on the back of... But you said that she did a really good job on her onion ones. Interesting. Larissa, they said nice stickiness. Again, I'm assuming they meant the scone.
Also what she said.
But they didn't actually clarify that. They just said, oh, nice stickiness there. They didn't say about the scone. They said there was too much skin in there on inside the sweet one. They said the size was good, but the relish that she made wasn't needed for the savoury. After insisting that she needed to make a relish, they said it wasn't needed. Joel's were basic but flavoursome. They said both of them were awesome. The savoury one needed icing sugar. Sure.
Yep.
You know, Dean's baked all around the world.
Apparently. I think he's baked macaroons.
Then when they went to the judging, Maddie basically said that Joel was an idiot.
Baked macaroons to Macron.
Don't start. Don't
Watching Mickey Rooney.
Don't do it. But yeah, Maddie basically said that Joel was dumb.
Big fan of Marconi. She did. Okay, please explain.
Anyway, because she just looked around and she goes, he just seems to wander around, not really knowing what he's doing. But then he magically manages to pull it out at the end. And I'm like, well, clearly he does actually know what he's doing.
No, his mum knows what she's doing.
You can't say that.
Desperately trying to leave the tent.
We can't.
He does actually know how to bake, because in growing up he probably had to like bake and bake, and she's like, "Oh, this is my son Joel, and we have to bake. Come on, Joel, show all my friends how wonderful I am."
Why does Sue suddenly sound like the Queen?
Because she is the queen when it comes to Joel.
So
she's the queen of his inheritance.
So basically, Sonali was star baker and Vanessa went home. And Vanessa gives you a bit of a clue about the missing challenge.
Yep.
Because Vanessa said, hey, I get to sleep in tomorrow.
Ha
Somebody really needed that sleep in. Because as with last week and the week before, we got sent footage. So what I was... Look, we need to give you an update. I went to go and upload the reel-to-reel, which I'd kept safe. And we had Leo guarding.
Whose bright idea was that, Buchanan?
Look, I had a really good idea.
All the week before I got was, oh my God, you burnt the film.
You want to know why he's...
cigarettes on it.
If you want to know...
You don't smoke, you just burn things with it.
If you want to know why he's barking, he's barking because he's still not quite over the argument we had midweek. You see, he ate the film.
Yep.
I went out there and he'd just eaten most of it.
Destroyed it.
I mean, the thing is, while I've been cleaning up after him in the yard this week, I've been watching the episode back. It's come back better than it actually was in the first run, so that was good.
I think the thing that's been most disturbing is when he's been running around the yard with half of it hanging out his butt.
It's been terrifying. I mean, but like Clayton blowing in the breeze, it's been fun. You'll appreciate that, Clayton. Anyway, so this week, no chances. This week there were absolutely no chances taken. This week, what we ended up getting was a VHS. Because we wanted something that was a bit more
durable,
robust. Yeah. Look, we've had problems with reel to reel and tape.
Yep.
We wanted robust. Now, I don't know how we explain what we found because it brought back some very bad memories. You see, those of us who listened to our Great Canadian Bake Off coverage will remember that we managed to escape Canadian debtors' prison.
Indeed.
It was painful.
It was purely on Leo's luck. I mean, granted he destroyed last week's film, but he really saved our neck by betting everything on black.
Leo did a very good job, but
with all these tips.
But here's the problem, all right? So we were lured over there by a group called the Saskatoon Berry Association Australia. Yeah. Now, we believed they were real, much like Saskatoon berries themselves, which we argued were fake. And
just
then
blueberries.
Apparently they were then led to believe by the Saskatoon Berry Association of Australia they were real. They took us over to Canada. They showed us a good time. They didn't pay for it. No. And we got caught. So
got caught out.
We again refer back to the idea of they're not real. Well, we got the VHS. On the front of the VHS,
it said
Breakfast Bread Bonanza Berry Edition. And just the word berries had been crossed out.
To Saskatoon berries.
Apparently, the fucking Saskatoon Berry Association of Australia sponsored the Showstopper. I can only imagine that the reason why this was the challenge that got cut was that once again
they'd frauded.
The money fell through.
Yeah.
Look, how many times do we have to tell you all out there? Saskatoon berries and associations associated with them are fake.
I can only imagine that from here on in, the next part of the Great Kiwi Bake Off, it's just going to be austerity measures to make up for the great big debt.
You mean it hasn't been austerity measures already?
No.
It's kind of been.
Wait till next week where they all have to share a mixer.
Oh, God, the biscuit week is going to be nothing but packet mix and dough rolls.
Yeah.
Anyway, so with that in mind, let's take you through one of the most, outside of the Saskatoon berry part of it, ingenious showstoppers we've ever heard of.
So Dean comes in with Sue, I should say Joel Mum.
Joel Mum, yeah.
Joel Mum. And
Joel Mama.
Joel Mama. Who's Joel Mama? Anyway, I guess that's what she said. Anyway, he comes in and says, look, I don't just want a showstopper. I want to be able to eat my showstopper for breakfast.
I mean, look, realistically, he could have just, like, held it over and eaten it the next day.
But no, he decided he wanted it hot and fresh and ready to go. So the whole thing was set as an overnight challenge, a sleepover challenge.
And we're not talking about...
Bake Off first.
They didn't get rooms in the estate.
It was all bunkering down in the Cabana.
It was in the Cabana. They all had, like, tents and torches, and there was a campfire, which I thought was weird.
Yeah, but luckily, you know, bloody Hannah also knew how to make marshmallows because she did that with her kids and she found it a bit...
Lots of shaking in a jar again, it turns out.
Shaking in a jar, yeah. So there's a bit of s'more action going on.
All right, so let me just break down the challenge. So
yes,
the challenge, they had to create 5 breakfast breads.
Yes.
The centrepiece, however, needed to be a Saskatoon berry babka.
Yes, a Saskatoon berry babka. Now, I find this a little suspicious because when they zoomed in on Vanessa at one stage, saw the recipe, it clearly said blueberry babka, but the blue was crossed out and Saskatoon berry had been handwritten in.
I was a bit worried about that. I thought that it seemed... I saw a raspberry one that had been crossed out.
Yeah.
There was something else wrong with Vanessa's, though. We'll come to that in a moment. And I get the feeling that it was her actions of the night before. So they got in there and they had overnight. So they all started like proving their breads, and they were all doing... You know, we had some little damper rolls actually going on. Jeff was making some of those. You know, Jeff's part Australian.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Which part? His feet?
I think it's the left arm.
It was a donor arm.
And the right earlobe.
Donor earlobe.
Why not? But
donor lobe.
Little damper rolls.
Yep.
They were there. They looked quite good. They're all...
Sonali was making those, whipping those up. She was doing them on the campfire.
Well, they were both. Jeff and Sonali were both.
Jeff
and Sonali were both doing them. They had a damper off.
Damper off, yeah.
Yeah. Then you had, you know, again, we had people doing some pastry stuff, and they're like, but it's bread week, and again, as we've said, fast and loose in the Cabana. So what we had like mini croissant style breads. That was, I think Larissa did one of those. She said it was a big hit with the boys.
She also did banana bread, which is luckily because they've got a sponsor for those.
They did. So Dole was able to help them out there.
Yeah.
We had a couple of chocolate breads being made. Clayton made a chocolate bread.
Yep.
Which I thought was really cool.
Joel, on the other hand.
Well, Joel went with a raspberry and pear bread. And I got
No, you're getting confused. That was I think that was one of Vanessa's, because if you go to Joel...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He made one white dough. One big bread white dough. From that, he proceeded to make a loaf of bread, a dozen buns, a French stick... Crostoli, and I believe just some flatbreads.
Yeah, and that was all around his babka.
That was all around his babka. Just the one dough, 5 ways.
By the way, I actually got the feeling that this is the moment where we worked out that Joel might be Sue's son.
Why?
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but the loaf of bread that he pulled out of the oven at the end of the challenge
looked nothing like his original bread.
Was wholemeal.
Really?
Yeah, did you not notice that?
No.
I reckon that Sue's made the bread.
Yeah.
And he's just not noticed. Because he looked a bit confused as to why there were seeds in it. Because when they cut it open and they're eating, like, oh, the seeds are really good here. And Joel was like,
that's a white dough.
It's a white loaf. What the hell's going on?
That's what the look that passed between him and his mum
was it.
That
was it. You know, it was a look that screamed, shut up and take this, son.
Yeah.
So they all were proving all these different breads, and that was dull.
Look, it went on throughout the night. All kinds of breads were being made.
Then we
It
had...
was a celiac nightmare, really.
Yeah, then we had everyone... The lights sort of went out because they had to turn the lights off because, they didn't pay for that much power within the cabana. But then, suddenly, there was a television in the corner, and the television's lit up.
And Madeline's appeared.
And all you heard was, "Show me that smile, yeah."
And she's like, "Look, everyone, it's Alan Thicke."
Yeah, for some reason she decided to play the best of Alan Thicke.
Because the Saskatoon berries are Canadian.
It was the Canadian link. And
So
then later on in the night when they went back to baking, she played the best of Paul Schaefer and his CBS Orchestra.
Oh, that was brilliant.
So much.
But what I didn't realise is that Rob is a fucking bandit for Alan Thicke.
So it was amazing.
He was down for it.
It was all amazing. Everything was amazing. So Dean is a big Alan Thicke fan.
Yeah.
You know why?
Why?
Dean's baked everywhere. Dean once baked in the same country as Alan Thicke.
Probably.
At
and
some
bean
point.
baked.
Maybe. Anyway.
Baked beans.
Possibly.
Breakfast bonanza.
And speaking of baked beans, we did have the camp. So the campfire overnight was interesting.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a recreation of the bean scene from Blazing Saddles. I don't think it was intentional.
No, we're looking at you, Vanessa, in your hijinks.
Well, you're looking at Vanessa. I'm looking a bit more at Stacey.
Yes.
And Clayton, who looked very innocent but looks are deceiving. Hannah then decided that she needed to keep everyone entertained.
Yes, with some ghost stories.
Yeah, so she had the torch up. It was a dark and bready night. Look, that part may not have worked very well, but you could see Maddie was in the corner taking notes about delivery.
Too soon.
It's not too soon.
No, it's not.
It's not soon enough. Not soon enough.
Yeah.
So Hannah was telling some really cool ghost stories.
Yeah.
And then they were all supposed to go to sleep for the night.
So they've got their sleeping bags.
Oh, there was some really interesting sort of sleeping. And again, I admire...
Or non-sleeping.
Well, I admire the fact that Annabelle, first of all, laid down the law to everyone.
Yeah.
Told everyone, right, everyone, that's it, lights out. If you want to be a good baker, you must get some sleep. And then she held up in the proving drawer, which was nice.
Yeah, and she let her sleeping bag do the proving of the doughs, like she gave them.
She's a savant.
She is. She's like, there's not enough room in the proving drawer for all my doughs, but there's enough room for me, and in my sleeping bag, there's enough room for the doughs.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And so, at that point, everyone sort of goes to sleep. And I say, sort of.
Vanessa?
Jeff, we're looking at you. Right.
Giggling Gerties is a phrase that springs to mind.
I mean, at this point in time, they flash back to 15.
I know. It's like, ooh, look at us.
Yeah, there was, and you couldn't hear exactly what they were saying. You could just hear whisper, 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 giggle, 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 whisper, whisper, giggle, giggle, and then they'd look over at one point, and then you'd hear, and then they went back and giggled again,
and then they just started to settle down when Sonali started talking in her sleep. And the interesting thing is, she quotes Flight of the Conchords lyrics.
It's all Flight of the Conchords.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. I've never heard anybody rap the hip hopopotamus while sound asleep.
It was just divine, and that set Jeff and fucking Vanessa off, so they were gone for the rest of the night.
Because Sonali, everyone's there very quiet, and all you're getting from Sonali is, ain't no party like my Nana's tea party. And it was and then Jeff and Vanessa found this hilarious.
Yeah.
Absolutely hilarious. I mean, the plus side was, Larissa got some sleep because Larissa was able to build herself a cone of silence.
Yeah.
And unlike the one in Get Smart, hers worked.
But what came back to bite Hannah in the butt was Clayton woke her up to escort him to the toilet because he was scared
by the ghost stories.
Look,
and you've got to expect that if you're telling ghost stories, you've got to expect there's going to be some blowback off the back.
Exactly, people who are scared to you telling stories about serial killers. Serial killers have bread, and away you go.
So the next morning, they all woke up and they got up to do their breads, and what really scared poor Clayton, I felt so bad for him, was that as part of a practical joke, Jeff had made his breadsticks into the shape of knives. And so it looked, when Clayton woke up, the first thing he saw was this knife just hanging off the side of a bench. Yeah. And he leapt. Poor bastard, I felt so bad for him. So they all put their breads in the oven and they all baked all their breads, and the babka was the centerpiece of this. Now, Vanessa, as she said later on, I get to go home and sleep. Well, she'd been up all night, and it showed when it came to the babka. You see, what happened was that Vanessa... She used the Saskatoon berries, and I say Saskatoon berries quite incorrectly. They look like blueberries in raspberry juice, which is what I think they are.
Turns out she's a massive fan of Great Australian Bake Off, in particular one particular baker.
She's a very, very big fan of Antonio. And so as a result of being a big fan of Antonio... she kind of...
made a panettone.
Yeah, she didn't make a babka, she made a panettone.
Yeah.
In her words, in the little interview they did outside outside of the Cabana, she's like, I don't understand. He made a panettone when he was supposed to make a babka, and he made the grand final.
She goes, this was my moment.
Now I'm going home. I can't work it out.
She goes, oh, it's like fast and loose in the shed until you actually go really fast, really loose.
And apparently it's the wrong thing. And then, I mean, to be fair, she then giggled again and looked back at Jeff, and Jeff and her were snickering back and forward. And that lightened the mood a little bit.
It did, yeah.
Hannah, every time Hannah went to speak to poor Clayton, Clayton just jumped and went, get away from me! And Sonali couldn't work out why everyone was singing songs at her.
Yeah, she's like, what? She's like, what are you singing these songs at? I don't know them. Who were you even singing at me? It turns out she doesn't even know who Flight of the Conchords are.
And and more importantly, when Joel came back to his bench, all his bread was cooling.
Yep.
And he couldn't quite work it out because he hadn't been back to his bench. And he hadn't even put it in the oven yet.
Yeah, it was all done.
He'd been off running the beep test.
He was getting his,
getting his reps in, and he came back and he's like, I must have baked it in my sleep. Yeah. And Sue walked past and went, that looks really good, and kept walking. And I wonder if he's ever going to put it together.
I think the penny's got to drop at some point.
I don't think it does.
Where he's like, I wanted to be out of here, 2 weeks ago, and I'm still stuck here. I think the penny's gonna have to drop at some point.
And at this point, it got creepy.
Yep.
Because at this point, now, what was the challenge, remember? It was the breakfast bread bonanza, and Dean demanded that he got it in bed. So what happened was, we got this doors opened. There was a trumpeter. I don't know where the fuck they got a trumpeter from, but a trumpeter appeared. And the next thing you know, our hosts are wheeling in a bed.
One great big grand brass
with
full
Dean.
poster.
With Dean. Now, again, Sue's walking around. She's not in the bed. She's just like walking around. And even she looked a bit perplexed.
Oh, did you see the flour on her hands, though? That she didn't have time to brush away?
Yeah, I did. And I saw she was moving away some wholemeals from some seeds. And then, so Dean gets pushed in on the bed. And, he wasn't awake. I don't think he actually knew they'd done it. And he sort of sits up and goes, what the fuck? And so then they wheeled all the breads over and presented him with all of these baked breads. And
guess what colour his pyjamas were?
What colour?
Beige.
Oh, nice.
What colour the sheets were?
Beige. So
it's all a bit
beige. So what happened? Well, they got to the judging and... they judged everybody's, and it was all very mundane, as it always is. And then when they came over to Vanessa's, I mean, the judging... I need to quote Dean directly here. Dean's exact words when he had Vanessa's panettone were... And I think that spoke for everyone inside the Cabana. And I think it really sums up her time.
Yep. That's it.
And then they wheeled him back out. Unfortunately, there's no ramp, so the bed did fall backwards. And I don't know if you saw off camera, but the bed just sort of flipped. And he sort of rolled into the pool. And,
I'll have to go back and watch that part.
Yeah, you need to go back and watch that bit.
That sounds classic Dean.
Hang on a minute. I'll just get the...
Chris?
Oh, for fuck's...
Which VHS player did you use? The one that is perfectly running that my dad lent us, or your old one that eats tapes?
Look, the important thing is I survived.
Uh-huh.
Why don't they just send us a fucking digital file?
I don't know. I don't know if they even keep it. Was this thing even, like, how are we even getting all of this?
I'm starting to think that this show's a fever dream.
I'd like it to be.
It kind of, I think a lot of people...
I wake up now?
I think a lot of people on Twitter consider this show to be a bit of a fever dream. And with that, that's going to do us for this week. I hope you've enjoyed our recap of the extra challenges. I mean, we like giving them to you. I hope you stick with it. I really do.
Look, if you're longing for a bit of good baking, go check out the Instas and the Twitters and the Facebook pages.
Go find the bakers
of all the old bakers and the current Kiwi bakers.
Go find the bakers online and go and look at some of the stuff they've baked, because they're really making some amazing stuff. And the bakers, I feel, we've said this before, I feel really bad for the bakers in the show because their personalities, their skills are not as out there as they really should be. And I feel like the people that are being disadvantaged in this show the most are the people who should be advantaged because they're the ones with actual talent and ability.
Yeah.
So until next week when we get to watch Biscuit Week, which is usually a bit of a damp squib anyway, I'm still Chris.
No, I'm still Kristie.
We'll catch you all then.
P.S. I love you.